I thought early on for LSU's sake that if they could keep the game close early, that they would have a chance just because how good of a second half team they have been the entire year. And throughout the first half, it was obvious that, like we talked about in the pregame and leading up, the plan that Matt House and the LSU defense had for Bryce Young and Gibbs and the Alabama offense was something that Bryce Young was a little confused. He was looking at something that he was trying to figure out, and you saw some tendencies from Young that you rarely see. Very inaccurate, very indecisive, throwing the ball to spots where wide receivers were running one route and the ball was going to another place. Things that you rarely see from Bryce Young, especially at this point in his career with as much as responsibility as Alabama, Bill O'Brien, Saban put on him in that position, right? I mean, he was confused. He was trying to figure out what he was looking at, and the biggest part of that formula was 40, was Harold Perkins. And I went back and watched the TV copy 3 times, 4 times. Kirk Herbstreit at one point, I mean, he can't get over how good Perkins is. And it's, Perkins' numbers on the night, even though they're glaring, I still don't know if they even do it justice of the impact that he had on the game. Just BJ and Harold on the field together accounted for 19 tackles, 2 sacks, and 9 quarterback hurries. Harold Perkins by himself, 8 tackles, 7 pressures, 4 stops, 3 hits, 3 hurries, 1 sack, and a tackle for loss on Saturday night. He was everywhere. The way that Matt House used Harold Perkins against Bryce Young was something that Young has not seen. The tackle that he made late in the second quarter where Alabama gets that whatever call that we'll talk about here on the sideline and gets the ball back, and LSU is able to keep Alabama out of the end zone and only give up 3. The play that Perkins makes on 3rd down on Young, where Young's trying to get out of the pocket, and he chases him down after dancing through the wash again and getting to Young and bringing him to the ground, is just stuff that, you can teach football and coach it for 35 years. You can't teach that stuff. You either got it or you don't. And 40 and purple and gold is...
He got it.
He is not one of the best freshmen in America. He's one of the best football players in America. And it's tough to argue that right now. Every single game, even for as little as he played against Tennessee, when you turn on the film and the 9 plays he was on the field, he had an impact on 6 of them. I mean, now that he's not coming off the field, the impacts that he's having on the games are immeasurable. You cannot calculate how big he means to LSU and what they look like defensively. And like Brian Kelly said after the game, he's still making mistakes, and there's still some things that we don't see. You know what I mean? There's still some things that when you overall look at the body of work, you're still saying, he's great, he's fantastic, he can do no wrong. He still makes mistakes. But the balance of the risk reward, the mistake to the playmaking ability is just incredible of how much he impacts the game from a positive standpoint for LSU. Defensively as a whole, though, I think that the entire group deserves a ton of credit, because that Alabama offense, really is the identity of the program right now. And LSU defensively throttled them, right? I mean, look at the game that Alabama played against Tennessee. I mean, they got into a track meet with Tennessee. They were going score for score with them. LSU shut them down, Alabama. Now, for the first 3 quarters, it was a defensive heavyweight fight. For the, final quarter in OT, that was some firepower. That was some fireworks, right? I mean, that was high-level offense, good execution, good football. It was such a good game, right? Like, I mean, at the end of it, it was an incredible just football game. I mean, it had a little bit of everything. I mean, it was rough. It was physical. It had some, big plays. It had, high flying plays. It had freshmen. It had veterans. It had everything. I thought LSU's punter, Bramblett, played great from a standpoint of just field position. It was, I thought overall that the performance of all three units for LSU was fantastic. So that's my thought on the defense. Offensively, Jaden Daniels is, for as much as we talk about Harold Perkins being one of the best players in college football right now, Jaden Daniels feels like he's one of the best quarterbacks
he is
in college football right now. For somebody as the way that he impacts the game, and now you can see with the way it's been interesting for me to watch the way that Brian Kelly coaches Jaden Daniels. And if you go back and watch the TV copy from Saturday night, there's a moment in the first half where Daniels keeps the ball and Kelly brings him to the sideline and kind of gives him a, what are you looking at? And then kind of gives him almost like an eye roll, kind of like, come on, you're better than that at this point, right? Like you should be seeing that and letting the ball go. But early on, you could see how they were, trying to bring him along and developing. And where he is now for what they put on him, I mean, he outplayed Bryce Young. I mean, if you'd have told me 3 months ago, Jaden Daniels is going to outplay Bryce Young in the Alabama LSU game, I'd have laughed you out of the room, right? But now that the game is come and gone, Daniels, don't get me wrong, Young was great. He made some great plays. That play in the fourth quarter of keeping the play alive and making the long touchdown pass was vintage Bryce Young. But, I mean, Daniels made some really good passes. I mean, that play down the sideline to Malik Neighbors over Eli Ricks is a pro throw. And his ability to run the ball, I mean, is he's the best running quarterback I've ever seen at LSU. I mean, some of the plays that he made in regulation, the one where he cuts into the middle of the field and slides is
on third down.
I mean, that is just special.
You can't teach it.
I mean, the overtime run, I want to make sure and highlight the overtime run, though. For Daniels, it was incredible to get outside. But the block that Mason Taylor and Josh Williams make on that run is like literal football pornography. I mean, that is something in film that the coaches will play on loop 200 times. I can't imagine how many times Frank Wilson has played that for his running backs for Josh Williams. How many times the team will see Mason Taylor blocking for Jaden Daniels on that run to spring him for the lead and for the touchdown. And then the call of, I'm trying to think of a call in Tiger Stadium that has had that much weight and meant so much to a crowd. Maybe some of those fourth downs in 2007 in the Florida game. I mean, there was that type of spirit in the stadium when they lined up for it on the third and fourth down tries of the night where they were just slugging Florida in the mouth. It felt like that. But the angst in the building of the lead up to the timeout, and what was so beautiful about it to me was that Brian Kelly and LSU never blinked. They never thought about it. As soon as they scored, they made their mind up. They were going for two. In fact, if you looked across the other sideline, Alabama, Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide, they were the ones that looked a little confused, right? I mean, if you think back to that viral video of Nick Saban explaining the last play of the game of Texas A&M and Alabama, right? I mean, it's like a coaching film for football, right? I mean, you go watch it. I mean, it's as if he's explaining how to make ice water. I mean, it's very simple for him to break down how they were stopping that play. What LSU ran at them on Saturday on that 2-point was not very different. A&M was trying to get to the front pylon. Where did Mason Taylor catch the ball at? Right? I mean, like it was And LSU lines up, gets on it. Saban and Alabama kind of have hands in the air, kind of talking about, like looking at each other, subbing people in and out. And as Brian Kelly talks about, that play is so beautiful, by the way. I mean, the way that they run that RPO and get Daniels to the edge where he's playing one-on-one, and then you've got a receiver. That one was Mason Taylor. Sometimes they'll run the running back out there, and you can't really defend that.
It's a forward option.
I mean, with Daniels' ability to run the ball and then, the way that these guys are playing in space, I mean, that play is as unguardable that LSU runs. I mean, it's almost automatic because Daniels is so tough to take down one-on-one. I mean, he glides when he runs. He's got a beautiful running motion style to him where, I mean, he just he moves a lot like a running back. I mean, it's very rare to see a quarterback with that type of rushing ability that can throw the ball like he has developed into, right? I mean, like he has developed into a quarterback that throws the ball that you have to defend, that you have to respect.
The evolution of Jaden Daniels from the beginning of the season till now.
Well, and another testament to Brian Kelly.
Exactly.
I mean, go back and watch the on-the-field interview with Kelly after the game with Holly Rowe. I mean, Brian Kelly, a guy that came in here with a reputation that was very rigid, somebody that was, for all intents and purposes, he wasn't the perception of him. Nobody knew him down in Baton Rouge, but what you saw of him as Notre Dame's head coach, what you saw through your television was a guy that felt very difficult to get along with. Right? I mean, like he had this personality where it was very edgy. He was always red-faced and screaming and yelling.
Dancing.
I mean, right. I mean, it was just, and then to see him on the field after that game, crying.
I know. With
tears in his eyes. I mean, even Holly Rowe says to him, Coach Kelly, the tears in your eyes, this isn't your personality. Where is this coming from? And he says directly, I'm thinking back to and he says, and as Kelly, very sharp in the moment, as we always say, look, these aren't for me. These aren't personal tears and I'm crying for myself. This is for the team. Because I remember where we were in January and to where we are now, almost 11 months to the day of pulling out of the Houston Bowl with a JV team. Right, with a wide receiver at quarterback, and with guys that are going, changing positions to try and give you a team to play with, to 11 months later, defeating Alabama. And I'm hearing the criticism of this Alabama team of, what does it mean? What does it mean to beat Alabama these days? This is the same Alabama team that in the middle of the summer, everybody was decorating as one of Saban's best. A preseason overall unanimous number one team, right? All of the young guys like Will Anderson and Bryce Young who had played meaningful time were now coming back as veterans on the team. And this was going to be Saban's, one of his top squads. Now, has it played out to be like that? It has not. But to lose all of this respect for Alabama throughout the season, I mean, come on, let's pump the brakes a little bit, man. This is still Alabama now. I think the king of the hill, the crown has been transferred to Georgia. Georgia looks like they are the king of the sport right now, and that they don't look like they want to give that crown back for a while. But Georgia has to look down the line and see teams that are coming up the trail on them and have to see LSU as a big, bright, guiding light that's coming towards them. Because the momentum and the feeling around LSU's program right now is on fire. I mean,
literally
on fire. If you've seen some of the recruits react to Saturday night, some of the guys that were in the building on Saturday night, choose a name. Whether it's Taviano, the big safety, the big defensive back out of Texas. Whether it's Desmond Ricks, the number one cornerback in the country, who was in the building on Saturday night, go to their social media and check out what they had to say or watching that game. I mean, they're watching that game arm in arm. Taviano and Ricks are arm in arm watching that game at the end, filming. Somebody's behind them on social media. As soon as Taylor falls back in the end zone, both of them are sprinting towards the field as if their favorite team had just won the game.
It's like they were on the team, coach.
Right? I mean, to see the impact that this is having and the cloud that is mushrooming around LSU football and the way that the program is trending right now, it feels like there is now on Saturday, somebody as we're walking down the ramp. I mean, I got 3 of Jordan and 2 of his buddies are sprinting down the ramp to get down towards the field. Kelly's in front of me. I'm behind him trying to play dad. Like, everybody stay close. Keep your phones on. See your people just raining in. Some guy grabs me and looks at me and goes, "It's a rivalry now, Culotta."
You knew it.
And I mean, like, I was like, yeah. You got me, bro. You got me. You got me. But to me, you're right. I mean, the meaning of a rivalry is where it's going to go back and forth.
So now it's a rivalry again.
Hey, man, if LSU can compete and beat Alabama and, you know, year in, year out, have a chance, a real chance to win the game with no smoke and mirrors, with no, you know, problem of, you know, even though the kick out of bounds late in the game, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Are you
with me right
kidding
now?
me right now?
Oh, my God.
I mean, not only do I have to deal with the referees, which, by the way, let's talk about this call.
Are we getting into what the shuck?
I mean, no. What the shuck is rolling on, man.
That's what the shuck.
Yes.
All of it.
What the shuck is, okay, you know, when you, this is why there is a reputation of when you play Alabama that you've got to play the referees too. Now, let this be said. I know that Alabama had plus 90 yards in penalties on Saturday night. And a lot of their penalties are egregious. That watching a Saban and Alabama team these days, that is the most surprising part of just how undisciplined they are. I mean, the amount of just boneheaded penalties that they get to cost themselves drives, opportunities is just you never thought the day would come where you would see a Saban coach team be so undisciplined. So, look, man, first things first, they were penalized for 90 yards. I'm not saying that they were cheating to try and keep, but the play on the sideline with Latu, the tight end for Alabama, that Greg Brooks recovers the fumble. That's the worst call in football I've ever seen, and I know that by the letter of the law, that's the rule. I mean, even the Bill, the guy Bill, whatever his name is on ESPN, is explaining it, and Herb Street on the broadcast says to Bill, he goes, "Well, Bill, I feel sorry for you having to explain that one on social media tonight." He's like, "Good luck there, partner." Because, I mean, like, even Fowler and Herb Street, while they're explaining it, they're like, "Bill, he's not even touching it." He's like, "Well, I mean, Bill, what do you mean, like right now?" I mean, like, Bill's like, "Hey, look, guys, don't shoot the messenger." You know what I mean? He's like, this is the rule. And I mean, like, as I'm sitting in the stadium, I'm sitting there thinking, like, why is this taking so long? Like, what is the issue here? Like, I mean, and some guy next to me who's listening to the radio broadcast is like, they're checking to see if it was an illegal fumble. And I'm like, what the hell's an illegal fumble? And he's like, well, if he fumbled it forward, and they're showing the replay, and I'm like, well, he didn't, so let's get moving, man. Let's roll. And when he comes down and says that I'm like, say what? And I understand it's a bad rule. Right. It's a horrible rule. But even by the letter of the law, it looked as if the ball was secured by Brooks before it had been touched by Latu. Now, I know it's like his hand grazes the ball. And if that's the rule, that's a shitty rule. You need to blow that up, and you need to use that as the example of why the rule sucks so bad. But even by the letter of the law, you're even thinking like, well, this is kind of debatable, right? I mean, even like it wasn't like Latu like pushed it forward or tried to grab it. His hand grazed it as Brooks has the ball secure. Huge play, but again, credit LSU's defense, which I think it starts with Major Burns where he screwed up, right? He gives up the crossing route to, I believe, was that Brooks, the wide receiver? I don't know who it was. Maybe McClellan?
It was the running back that isn't Jameer Gibbs, number 2.
Right. I think it's McClellan. He gives up the crosser, and I think he's gone, and Major Burns chases him down like from behind. He has no angle on him. If you're looking at it, he is running direct line behind the receiver and is able to keep him out of the end zone. And LSU stop, field goal, huge deal right there. But the rule on the sideline, I would just say, okay, you get a pass there. I give you a pass. If that's the rule, it's a terrible rule. Blow it up. Huge play. Credit House, LSU's defense for making the stop, holding them to a field goal. You get to the second half. I mean, my God. That is a Patrick Peterson 2 feet inbounds 2008 interception picture right there. I mean, that is amazing that Alabama was able to keep the football at that point. But, okay, you know what? You're enforcing the rule. I'm with you. It sucks. Terrible rule. You should talk about it as a rules committee. First opportunity you get. Then get to the second half and into overtime where on an enormous play, third down for Alabama's offense, Mekhi Wingo gets his hand into the passing lane. Ball changes the trajectory of its flight. You can see it as clear as day. They're showing it. Credit to the replay guy in the stadium. He should get a raise.
Into my brain.
That's exactly right.
It is burned into my brain.
And that's what it should be, because when it's so obvious like that and you're at home, that's what should be happening, because 95,000 should be raining down at this moron being like, what are you looking at?
You don't think that fucking guy wants to work for LSU?
What are you
I'm a fan of
Absolutely.
LSU football.
Play it again.
Zoom in.
Play it again.
Zoom in. Slow it
Play
down.
it again.
You look like you work for
Play it again.
Miami.
Should I play it again? Play it again.
Play the heads.
Play it again. Don't ask me if you should play it again. Just keep playing it over and over
Can we play
and
it
over
a few
and
times?
over again. Unbelievable. And then the guy gets on the microphone, and you can see Brian Kelly's face as they are contemplating whether or not what the call is in review. It was almost like Kelly was thinking, and I was sitting there thinking as I'm watching the TV copy at like 1 a.m. on Saturday night. I mean, I was just like buzzing off of football. I mean, I was like, chop it up. Let me snort more of this LSU Bama game. I need all of it. I mean, it was drugs to just keep watching this thing and seeing all of what was happening. But Kelly, he's kind of got his arms, kind of like these sons of bitches. These. I have been told about this LSU Alabama game, how there's always something that comes in here that you can't account for, and these sons of bitches are about to blow it for me right here. And it was like when they said the ball had not been tipped on the review, he had this smirk to him like, and you know what I kind of thought in watching it back was that he thought in that moment, if we score, we're going for 2. Because I'm not letting these guys get another opportunity to job me out of this thing. And if they get a chance, it's obvious that they will take the opportunity to screw us.
Yeah.
They will do that. I mean, there's a report. Like, I've talked to people like that. One of the back judge walked up to Mingo and told him in the game that the referee knew it was tipped.
No.
Yes, I read the same thing.
No way.
Now I don't know what to believe anymore because of how that all transpires.
I talked to a player on the field, and they are saying that an official walked up to Mingo and was like, that ball was tipped.
Oh, my God.
Look at the ball change the trajectory. I mean, like, what are you looking at?
It's a knuckler now.
Right?
Oh,
so, I mean,
so bad, dude. Unbelievable.
So 2 plays later, Alabama's in the end zone, and you knew then. It was like, man, hey, look, you got to beat Bama, and you got to beat these cats in the stripes, because that's what it's going to be, right? I mean, that's how it's going to be. So then on the first play of OT, what a beautiful play call, by the way, of Jaden Daniels, putting the ball in your best player's hand and giving him the option of, you throw it or run it, bro. The coaching staff trusts you enough with the ball to make a choice on the move. And Josh Williams, who intended to be a receiver on the route, notices that Daniels puts the ball in his armpit and is tugging this thing, and the block he makes, I mean, it is such a textbook stalk block in the open field.
I'm watching
and
it right now.
Looks easy. He makes it look easy.
He does make it look easy.
But
I've
it is
watched
so
it 3
hard to
times
do.
now. I know.
I mean, that is a one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
That guy is
It's
squared
amazing.
up with you, and you just run up on him and shove him back, and it looks like
It
looks like an adult shoving a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and it springs Jaden Daniels into the open, and it was mayhem in Tiger Stadium. I mean, it was drinks flying, people flying, people hugging, people high-fiving. It was an incredible feeling, and I'm standing next to, look, there's little Jay and his buddies right there, and that's right before the moment.
His face.
Oh, to him.
The Badger? The shot of the night, dude.
Oh, no. How'd this sneak in here?
Oh,
Who could this be?
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Oh, I had to get a
What a
taste.
beautiful night,
Look,
man.
hold on. And there's just a bottle of bourbon on the field.
I'm
Look,
sure there's lots of bottles of bourbon
It was
on the field.
chaos down there. Look, there's just this a little bullet right there for you if you want it.
Nice.
It's fucking
Damn, dude,
prison.
That's a big bottle.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody, it couldn't have been me.
Do y'all know who the Tigers defeated in their last overtime win before this one?
Last overtime win before
Who and
this
when?
one. Give me the year.
I was
and
going to say
when?
the same thing.
Okay,
Give
the
me a
year is
clue.
2011.
2011. Year is 2011. It's Alabama.
It was Alabama.
Alabama.
9-6 in overtime, exactly 11 years
That's the last
to the day.
OT game.
The last
You know
OT
what I
win.
thought?
The
And you know
last
what I
OT
thought
Tigers
immediately was that
and,
LSU wins the toss, which is beautiful, but Bama wants to go to the
other-
south.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought back to, what was that, 14, when Kiffin went and he drew up that beautiful 2-point
Hit him with the
play.
whistle.
And I was like, oh, shit. You want to be in the north end. You want to be with the students
Student
here.
section.
But you do want to win the toss and give them the ball first so you can react. And if LSU doesn't get hosed on the tip call, they hold them to a field goal. I mean, that was third down.
That was third down, absolutely.
I mean, they're off the field. They hold the field goal. But, you score in the first play of OT, and Brian Kelly makes a call that I believe, look, man, you will hear me say all the time, I hate to speak in hyperbole in this job. As soon as you say that's the best I've ever seen, that's the best to ever do it, he's the greatest alive, somebody tomorrow will do it. And in sports, that's usually how it works. This is a call, though, that will live on forever as far as Brian Kelly, LSU, and his career here lasts. People will, it felt like this was the moment in which he's the dude.